The Blaming of the Shrew. He wasn't sexy in that usual way. He wasn't hunky or built. He had that liveliest guy in the room type charm, and his green eyes against his deeply tanned skin made him stand out from the bar. He was super sexy and didn't know it, and I wasn't about to tell him. That would be like reading him his sexual Miranda rights. Any confession about how much he turned me on can and will be used against me. He wasn't self-aware. He didn't know his assets from his deficits. His self-styled narrative was that he was humble, a dedicated husband, father, and community member with an affable small-town demeanor. But behind that was a passive-aggressive scaredy cat afraid to show the world who he truly was. And yet, that was his appeal. His conflicting emotions made him hard to read and a challenge. His passive-aggressive behavior made him the sweetest one day and a monumental asshole the next. Actually, he could go from darling to dick in a matter of hours. I questioned if he had a mood disorder. Slightly manic, maybe? I never met her, but he claimed his wife was cold, controlling, and unaffectionate. Supposedly, she wouldn't go with him to social events, or let him do things he wanted like guys' adventures, which made him inwardly resentful, yet outwardly obedient and compliant. She had a tight leash on him, and at least in the presence of his master, this puppy wasn't barking. His adult kids felt sorry for him because he appeared to be strangled by their mother's iron fist style of matrimony. The kids felt bad that he couldn't go where he wanted, bad that he couldn't do what he wanted, bad that their mother spoke to their father in a snarky tone. What the kids didn't know was that it was all part of his well-crafted persona. If you see me as the victim, I am the victim, and you'll never suspect me as doing anything wrong. But please, don't ask me what I did on my last business trip to LA or New York, because then you'll know what a victim looks like, pants down in missionary position, exacting revenge on his meany wife with each and every thrust. I couldn't blame him at times for saying, I dislike her. Although he says he tried, their sex, quote, didn't go so well, which left him feeling very much alone. I never got to the heart of what didn't go so well really meant. She didn't come? He didn't come? The TV was on and no one was really paying attention? He'd masturbate about me and tell me about it. He was excellent at dirty talk infused with just the right amount of Big Daddy meets 50 Shades of Grey. He'd say nurturing stuff like, you like that baby, don't you? You want more? You want me to give you more? His voice would start low and go up at the end like how you talk to a baby. And with that, I became his baby. He would take care of me, own me, and I was completely under his spell. He had great airport surveillance technique. Once after a secret rendezvous, we were about to board and go our separate ways. He scanned the airport waiting area for anyone from his hometown who might catch us together. It appeared no homies were in sight, so he kissed me, hastily, just in case his local mayor popped out of the women's room or something like that. I felt cheated by a kiss that barely exchanged saliva, but I didn't want to ruin our goodbye by pouting. He walked toward the jetway, then abruptly stopped. There she was. Not the hometown mayor, but the CFO of an important organization he was doing business with. Out came his charm act with the precision of the Rockettes' chorus line. He was going to distract the woman from perceiving all the wrongdoing that had just been done. By the time the flight attendant said, "Fasten your seatbelts and turn off your phones," he was already on his, texting me feverishly, lamenting about how he may have been caught kissing me. Is that what that was? In the airport. There I was, after our romantic overnight interlude, reassuring him that his pristine family image was intact. Inside, I was feeling dismissed and unimportant, but don't worry, I texted. The woman didn't see anything. The woman didn't know that he could unhook a bra faster than a porn king, and we all know that takes practice. At least a bunch of business trips worth of practice. The family man image he had painstakingly cultivated after decades of success and goodwill in the community remained perfectly intact. like John Edward before the baby. His beautiful eyes would lock into conversation with intensity. His gaze would steal you into his ruddy, handsome face, his charisma, and his charm. He was sharp and quick-witted, and quick on the uptake. Everything about him was quick. Well, almost everything. At times he pulled these disappearing acts, a maneuver that was highly passive-aggressive. Whenever he did this, it threw me into a tailspin wondering, what did I say? What did I do? What the hell just happened? His disappearing acts caused me great agony and pain until I learned the best way to cope was to find a fill-in for the times he was gone, then wait. Sometimes a day, sometimes a week. The longest was 3.5 months, by which time my thoughts of him had gone from perpetual and incessant to maybe a tear or two during a really sad retro love song. I cried a tear, you wiped it dry. I was confused, you cleared my mind. La 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 la. That song was a trigger for everything I missed about him. By the time Anne Murray got to You Needed Me, my eyes were swollen and my nose was red. He didn't need me anymore, and to top it off, I looked like shit. After a disappearing act, he always came back, so eventually I understood that I just had to wait it out. Wait for what? I'm not sure. It was unlikely that we could be together in any permanent sort of a way. We were perfect as lovers on a passionate escapade rooted in deep friendship without any of the day-to-day. He was more happy hour, and I was more highbrow. He'd always lived in the same 4-mile radius, and I'd lived on 2 continents. I had $1,500 shoes and even more expensive dresses. Despite his sizable bank account, he'd balk that dinner he hosted for a close family friend cost him $600. We were drawn to each other's minds, and our chemistry was off the charts. Our banter was funny, heartwarming, sexy, intelligent, curious, vulnerable, and deeply personal. To this day, my heart jumps when I see his name on a text message. But that's not what he needed. He needed his wife's love, appreciation, validation, and approval. I think if she gave him more thank yous and a bi-monthly blowjob, he'd immediately stop his philandering ways. He'd gotten used to masturbating, and maybe her participation in it could have given the experience that little, extra kick. At this point, I don't think he'd press her for sex. In his own way, despite his cheating behavior, I believe he'd like to work it out with her, because for him, leaving is just too difficult. Staying in his marriage made him appear like a stand-up guy, and for a man whose identity was anchored in respect from his parents, respect from his kids, and respect from everyone watching, he just couldn't go. Besides, his married life was secure and predictable, and he liked that more than me, more than us, more than anything. Friends would say, forget it, he's married, but I'd remind them that so was I. Yet it wasn't about marriage, it was about a love affair, the thrill of meeting each other here and there and spending just enough time together to revel in our similarities, then escape our differences. We would make love, kiss, stare into each other's eyes, laugh, dream, hope, and support each other. Then we would both go home with indelible memories of kisses that touched the soul. I never wanted that to end. It could have gone on like that forever. If only he could have reconciled himself to her and me. If only I could have reconciled myself to him and mine. But I couldn't. Ultimately, I wanted the freedom to love with abandon, love him with abandon. I was his dream girl, and he was my fantasy man, and I wanted it to stay that way forever.